Hi, everyone, and welcome to the USA Today Live. We are dissecting all things the life of a showgirl celebrating Taylor Swift's 12th era. I am so excited about this panel. In fact, this might be worth the 13 minutes of sleep overnight from listening to the album, doing live hits, writing stories. This panel is amazing. We have Kayla Wong. She is the data Swiftie. She knows everything when it comes to songs, lyrics, tracks. She's been looking into all the text, all the poetry that Taylor has produced. We also have Sarah Chappelle. She is the style Swiftie. She's been blogging about Taylor's closet for the past about 13 years. She also is a New York Times bestseller. So I'm excited to talk to her about the aesthetic and the fashion when it comes to a showgirl era. We have Alia Buttleman. She is the CEO, one of the CEOs for Phase It Glitter Patches. A lot of you are familiar with the company. Taylor wore those to a game and her business skyrocketed overnight. We're going to be talking to her just about what this showgirl era means and how she is changing the business to reflect showgirls everywhere. And then we have Tyler Conroy. He is a TikTok influencer. If you don't know him, you have to follow him. He's hilarious and funny. He has great reaction videos. And he is most known or most famous for being the one to first say, "Where you going, Taylor?" on the Eras tour. That's now something we all say. But let's get started first with our data Swiftie. Hi, Kayla. Tell me
Hi,
first, what are
Brian.
your initial thoughts? What do you think of the album?
I love the album. I thought it was going to be pop banger after pop banger, right? It's the way she talked about it in the podcast. It was a Max Martin Shellback record, too. And I think it really delivered up against my expectations. I don't think I told you this yet. My favorite is actually Honey of the full album. And I think I love Elizabeth Taylor, too. That's probably number two. It's taken me a second to put a full ranking together, but that was like my initial take on it.
Well, Elizabeth Taylor's the hook that's been stuck in my head all night and all morning about Elizabeth. I'm not going to sing. That would be disastrous. So this album, though, does feel like a love letter to Travis Kelce. Can you tell me how many of these tracks it looks like are for him?
7 of 12 is what I would say. There's always a little bit of interpretation in there. Sometimes people, may take it a different way or think there's double meanings. But I think the most obvious answer would be 7 of 12. So that's all of them excluding Father Figure, Ruin the Friendship, Actually Romantic, which that was surprising because I thought that was going to be a Travis song. And then Canceled and title track, The Life of a Showgirl, also not about Travis.
Well, one of the big talkers is kind of their next era. She does reference, marriage. She references possibly having a family. How does that compare to her past albums? And what have you noticed looking back through other songs in her discography?
She has talked about marriage either directly or through marriage imagery as a metaphor for a while. But if you think about her most recent albums, right, Tortured Poets through Midnights, it was really kind of sad, right? Kind of pessimistic. In Midnights, like the opening track being Lavender Haze about her essentially saying she doesn't want marriage. Then you flash forward to this album where she explicitly kind of addresses that and says that, she said that and she was lying, and presumably that's just because she didn't necessarily think that was on the table in previous situations. And so she had convinced herself that that wasn't something that she wanted anyway. And then you also have songs like Wish List, which not directly saying the word marriage, but obviously that's, related to her now maybe wanting to settle down, have a traditional life with a traditional family. And then she also has In Wood, which is not necessarily the most, it's a very explicit song, but
I like to say wood is a euphemism for wood.
yes. But even in that, she does address marriage, right? Like she has the hard rock ring analogy, and still makes it kind of like a sentimental, kind of a sweet song, even though obviously, there are other things about it too that people are probably going to fixate on a little bit more.
One of the lyrics that really cut deep that made me take pause is the last time Taylor, I feel like, talked about marriage was You're Losing Me, when she said, "I wouldn't marry me either, a pathological people pleaser." And then on this album, An Eldest Daughter, you have her not only saying that she vows for Travis in the future, but also kind of her entire outlook on marriage has changed. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's changed or it's just that she was kind of tabling different desires in the wrong relationships, right? Because I think that a lot of people do that, and I think that a lot of people see themselves in her when she sings about maybe not wanting something originally, and then she comes back and she says, okay, I'm going to contradict myself. That's not actually what I meant. But it's interesting because I was also watching some of the interviews, like the radio shows she was doing this morning, and I don't even think I'm fully caught up on like all the content there is out there right now because there's so much that I went up to. She also had mentioned that she didn't necessarily think in detail about like what her wedding would look like until she found that right person. So I think there are probably some ways in which she saw it as this fairy tale that she did kind of always want and aspire to have, but then there are also things that she would block herself from thinking about related to marriage and wanting that lifestyle until she felt safe enough to do so.
Now, you are the Data Swiftie. If anyone wants to follow you, it's at headfirstfearless on Instagram. But I say that because what are the most common words on this album? You usually have these stats available the next day.
Yes. So the most common words in this album, and this excludes what we call stop words, which is the and, like words that would kind of always be at the top. So taking those out, the top 5 words, number 1 is want, number 2 is never, number 3 is like, number 4 is now, and number 5 is the tie between got and no.
Yeah. Are there any brand new words?
There are, like infamy is one that comes to mind. I don't think she's used that one before. What's also interesting is that she uses a lot of, I don't know if it's all slang, but it's kind of more casual, like internet language with like boss up and trolling and memes and some of that stuff, which is interesting. I also like watching how she weaves that with really dated imagery too, right? Like referencing Hamlet, referencing Elizabeth Taylor, who's like this previous Hollywood icon, and then putting much more modern language in with that is an interesting thing to me.
Kayla, thank you so much for joining us. Another word that I think about is the word Cartier, and that was an Easter egg. A lot of fans were excited during the August 13th podcast when she wore that necklace, and it turns out that's an Easter egg. And you know what I learned about Easter eggs is she loves fashion, and I learned this from Sarah Chappelle, who is our fashion expert. Sarah, I want to know let's start on the Easter eggs. What types of Easter eggs have you maybe uncovered? Because she does like using fashion, accessories, bags, outfits to tell the story of the new era.
For sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Brian, for having me on. I really appreciate you reaching out. So a new to her brand that Taylor hadn't previously worn before is Cartier, a designer that she now obviously brings into the Taylor Swift cinematic universe via Elizabeth Taylor. And in the last few months, she's added a few Cartier pieces to her jewelry collection. We've seen that in the necklace and also in the watch that she wore during the New Heights podcast, where she also incidentally announced the album. One other thing that obviously kind of plays a key role in one of Travis's favorite songs is Opal, another gemstone that she's also kind of introduced into her discography to join rubies and obviously diamonds. So she's worn opal a lot over the last few years. It's always been one of her favorite stones. It kind of has a dreamy but also fiery quality to it. I recall that she wore a really affordable Melinda Maria ring in the Folklore music video as one example. So she's worn a lot of opal before this, but I think it's probably taken on a more sentimental meaning now that she has an October baby in her life. So not a surprise that that's also one of Travis's favorite songs.
And he gets a whole album on his birthday on Sunday celebrating. So happy birthday, Travis. Well, you can't have Showgirl without these elaborate, glitzy, diamond dripping type of outfits. Can you tell me, when you were seeing, especially the carousel that she posted last night, those new images, what is kind of the aesthetic and the feel for how she is incorporating this album?
Yeah, the album visuals are just so rich and so textured. They're really stunning. Photographed by the same photographers as we know who did the Reputation album photo shoot, one of my favorite album photo shoots in her discography. I think one of my favorite aspects of the photo shoots is how she's created this modern idea of a showgirl while also honoring the authentic and very rich and storied showgirl history with costumes from the past. So you'll see her mix the designer of the Blondes with the designer Bob Mackie, two designers that very much approach outfitting the female form very differently. The blonde's costumes that she wears in the photo shoot are very structured. They're very three-dimensional. They're very architectural. There's one particular bodysuit where the neckline is kind of like dramatically carved out, and it kind of sticks off of her body. Bob Mackie, by contrast, who is like the showgirl designer, his work has been worn by, Cher, Tina Turner, and now more recently Miley Cyrus. Like all of his work very much emphasizes on like beautifully outlining the female form. He's very much about carving out the womanly figure. So it's this really interesting contrast between these two sort of modern visuals of architectural and sculptural looks with a very accentuated and sensual female form. The Bob Mackie pieces that she's worn are also like original Showgirl pieces from the Vegas production Jubilee. So again, it's honoring the past while also carving out her own kind of path, which I think is very Taylor.
It's tailor-made, if you will. I love that you mentioned Bob Mackie because it makes me instantly think of Dita Von Teese, who's the queen of burlesque. She was in the Bejeweled music video. I had the unique opportunity to interview her and see her residency in Vegas in the spring. And I was asking her, how did Taylor approach you about that music video? And she said, well, she called and she was so well researched. That was something that was really striking, as she had seen all of Dita's videos. She was a huge fan. And so when Taylor goes into a new era, into new fashion, it almost seems effortless, but that's because it's so much research. And you even see that with her media tour. What have you noticed with her going on the Graham Norton show? There are pictures of that, and also of her UK tour that we've seen her doing radio station hits.
Yeah, absolutely. I was up quite late last night, as I'm sure that you were too. It's reflected in my voice right now, trying to find some of the pieces from her UK radio tour. You can say she's in this radio tour circuit. She's really helped me out specifically by sticking to brands that she's worn a lot in the past and which my eye has kind of been trained to recognize as part of her typical Rolodex. So for example, she wore David Coma on the Graham Norton show, and she also happened to wear a little black dress by David Coma when she previously appeared on that talk show in 2022, which is just a great way of her, extending her style patterning, building a familiar resume for these appearances, and being able to connect the two of them together over the years while also making sure that they each distinctly stand out as their own unique appearance. But that was very helpful for me specifically.
What's interesting is these behind the scenes type of photos that we've seen, and she did dump a lot last night of all these aesthetics and pictures. I feel like that is almost a teaser towards the movie that we're going to see. I was looking, if the album is 42 minutes long and this movie's 89 minutes, I imagine we're going to see a lot of Showgirl, maybe inspiration and talking. What can you tell us, at least looking at the photos and the aesthetic of what we might see in the theaters tonight or tomorrow or Sunday?
Yeah, I actually anticipate that the rest of the airtime might be filled by, a lot of it will probably be filled by her in that director's chair explaining each of the songs. I think what's really fun about this theatrical release is that it basically democratizes the fan secret session and is an opportunity for everyone to kind of take part in this living room communal energy of being able to talk about this album with the artist who wrote it, which is so cool. So I anticipate that a lot of the clips will be like kind of static of her explaining the look, which if it is, I've already identified the outfit. So thank God for that.
Of course you have. You are the fastest in the game when it comes. There was one blurry picture at a radio station that I was like, I can't even really see that dress. And you're like, I know exactly who the designer is.
Yeah, well, I've been identifying Taylor's fashion on my blog, Taylor Swift
You're
for
the
the last
expert.
14 years. So you could say I have a lot of experience doing this. Last fall, I condensed all of that expertise into a book. So I've been around the block.
No, you definitely know what you're talking about. And by the way, if you haven't read her book, it's absolutely amazing. She's a New York Times bestseller. Taylor Swift Styled on Instagram. You can follow the blog. Sarah, thank you so much for your insight.
Thanks, Brian, for having me.
Of course. And now that we're kind of in the fashion beauty realm, let's talk to a business owner whose life was completely changed overnight by the Taylor Swift effect or impact. Alia Buttleman is one of the co-founders of Phase It Beauty Patches. Alia, I can't tell you, going to Chiefs games, going to concerts, your glitter is everywhere. For anyone watching who might not be familiar, can you kind of take me back to the night that Taylor wore your product to a game and how your life changed?
Oh boy, it feels like a lifetime ago. I can't believe we're on our 1 year anniversary. But yeah, October 7th of last year, Taylor Swift walks through Arrowhead Stadium Tunnel wearing our gold glitter freckles. I come home from hot yoga. I look at Instagram. My Explore page is just covered with close ups of Taylor's face. And I think it was such a different look for her, than usual. So everyone was just super shocked about, the beauty choice that she made. I blacked out. My husband recorded a video of me bawling my eyes out. And, we had sales skyrocket 4,800% in 48 hours. We did over 7 figures in 48 hours. And the next day I was hearing from people like you from CBS at NBC Peacock, The Swift Effect, setting up a set in my living room. The next day asking me, what is the effect on your business? I was like, I don't really know yet. It's only been 24 hours. Let me get back to you. And so great that we were able to shoot season 2 last week. But no, I mean, our business catapulted, and we really used this as a company as a catalyst, and have been so grateful for this Swiftie community that we've built.
4,800% overnight. That's amazing. I remember the first time I talked to you, you said that Fortune 500 companies were calling you the next day and you manifested this moment. I want to talk to you a little bit. How has maybe your business model changed or been inspired in the past year when it does come to Swifties or Taylor Swift?
Yeah, of course, October 7th, it was about 3 weeks out from the second leg of her Eras tour in North America. So we were at every tour location, connecting with the fan base. And then beyond that, we were thinking, what's next? Beyond the Eras tour, we don't know what's going to happen. We were a brand, before Taylor wore the product. So we really pushed out a ton of new innovation, product development, really honing in on celebratory moments in someone's life. If it's bachelorettes, weddings, if it's Halloween, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, like all of these, core holidays for us. And, then a few weeks ago, Taylor Swift announces her new album. And we are still a lean and nimble team. And the Swifties have been incredible supporters of myself as a founder and our company. And we wanted to create a product for them to celebrate into this next era all together. So we've created in 5 days a show-stopping collection. We did 2 new SKUs. It's our show-stopping speckles, which I'm wearing. It's, the mint orange and silver, multicolored glitter freckles. Taylor wore the gold. And then we introduced a new design, which is our eye wing in stars. It's, the same color combination. I launched this last week. It sold out in less than 48 hours, which is absolutely insane. I probably should have remembered what it was like last year when, sales were insane. So we were sold out, but we pitched this to Walmart. In under 5 days, they were able to get up, this Get Dressed With Us type of Showgirl nod display that's up now at Walmart that is selling the album. And we've just been so excited. We went to a listening party last night. We got, everybody ready, and we can't wait to go to the premiere and, put more glitter freckles on everyone who we see at the theaters.
I expect to see a lot of them when I go later this afternoon. What's your favorite song before you go?
Oh boy, I feel like I'm always like the hot take with the albums. I'm in between Eldest Daughter and Wishlist. Maybe that's like inner romantic in me. And I feel like, the whole like I'm not like a bad bitch, like I'm not a savage. Like I feel like honestly that really resonates with me as a founder of like my life's like not actually this glamorous. Like if you usually see me, it's not what I look like in interviews. It's in a hoodie, just, working really hard. So can relate a little bit on a much smaller scale than Taylor. But no, I'm super excited about the album. I think we were all surprised and expecting these dance hits, but it's honestly like a wonderful surprise that it's a little bit different than what we were all expecting. And I think it's a really beautiful album and kind of speaks to, I think, this, loving era of life that she's in.
And I just love how she has helped, your business, your dream come true, and all the success that you've had. Again, Phase of Beauty co-founder Elliot Buttleman, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Okay, well, we got to save the grand finale when it comes to energy, and there's nobody who has more energy in life that I know of than Tyler Conroy. If you have not seen his video reacting to this album, you need to go on TikTok and Instagram and watch it. Tyler, do you have a voice? Have you slept?
I have not slept since Wednesday night, but the voice is still here. My mother asked me the same question. Oh, there was a voice crack, so maybe it's not here. I've been like hydrating and Celsiusing, so we're doing both together. I just also first off want to say the four of you are so inspiring, and this like thing that's happening right now is just like fueling me with so much like hope and positivity, and also just creativity and inspiration and light. So thank you for having me be a part of this, because this is so iconic.
Okay, that's a great segue, because I was going to ask, where do you find your inspiration? So when you're thinking about approaching from, you know, an influencer standpoint, a new album, what's kind of your process?
I first like decide to say what feels authentic to me. Like I love listening to the album, and filming the reaction videos has been something that I've been doing. I think I started it with Reputation, and I literally did it in like my office at midnight. I'd asked them if I could like go in because I was scared of getting evicted from my apartment. And that video did so well that people just wanted to keep seeing me react to things, because I'm very extroverted, and so my reactions are, I have to like extrovert how I'm feeling when I'm reacting to things. So that's kind of my first go, and then I just need to like take time to sit with it and really see like, okay, what's resonating with me, what's sparking creativity. I love scrolling on TikTok and seeing what other people are doing, what's sparking creativity for them. So it's kind of that like creative collaboration between what I'm authentically feeling and thinking, and then putting that out into the universe, and then being like, okay, what are other people feeling and thinking, and what does that inspire in my creativity?
I love that. Well, we got to get to the album and some of the talkers here. So I know when we were discussing before this live show, track 4 is a big talker. Can you tell me about Father Figure?
Track 4 is a big talker because first off, Taylor Swift calls out the size of an anatomy that she metaphorically has, which literally gagged me beyond no extent when I first heard that line. But it's also fun because she plays upon this role of the father figure, but also there's two personas within the father figure. So she said on Elvis Duran that she intentionally had this song have two kind of narratives. One as someone else being the father figure that she looks up to, and then that kind of role reversal where she becomes that father figure and they kind of become non-existent anymore. And that's clearly most likely about her ex-manager, Scott Borchetta. So that was just like a really fun moment for her to kind of reclaim her power after just getting her masters back, and then being able to write a song like that, being like, I'm the captain now. Like I am the father figure.
That's also very much like a Taylor Swift cue card, is when you watch something like the New Heights podcast, some of those questions are her explanation kind of leading into when she talked about the masters. I was like, I wonder if that's going to be addressed. Another big thing that she addressed was kind of, you know, mental health and the internet. And we see that in Canceled. We also, a big talker is everyone is talking about Actually Romantic, which one thing about Taylor is when you first read these lyrics, when I read Actually Romantic, I thought maybe it's Travis, while he was courting her, was actually romantic. And it couldn't be farther off. Tell me about this song.
No, Actually Romantic is definitely her response to a song that Charlie XCX wrote about her called Sympathy is a Knife. And Taylor Swift actually just said in an interview that she loved this album and she loves this process of making music and songwriting because it's her time to talk about things that she normally wouldn't talk about. These aren't things she's just going to take to Twitter and talk about. The way she does that is through art. So same with her masters, her way to kind of talk about the behind the curtain of getting her masters was writing Father Figure. And this whole album is that look behind the curtain. So when someone comes for her, she's going to write about it most likely. She might not talk about it in the press, but she will turn it into art. So Actually Romantic is this story about Charlie XCX's kind of diss track to Taylor, and Taylor being like, wow, you're so obsessed with me. That's actually hot. Like that's actually romantic. Like talk more dirty to me. This is amazing. I love how obsessed you are with me.
I feel like that's a really good transition into the next track that you know I'm going to ask you about. Again, we're keeping it PG, but when you heard her 9th track, what was your first reaction?
Blushing, sweating. I remember the first time I realized when she said the line about his love was the key that opened my thighs. It all clicked. Like it all clicked. And then that was like at the end of that first chorus. So then the whole second verse, I'm like, wait, I thought the song was about her not being superstitious anymore and her just knocking on wood. And now all of a sudden I think we're talking about her fiance's anatomy, and it just took a whole different meaning. But Taylor does that so well with her innuendos and her metaphors, and it's why she is such a genius songwriter.
And something really important, I think, with that song, I mean, at least forwarding the conversation, I spoke with a Harvard professor who teaches a Taylor Swift class, Stephanie Burt. And Stephanie was saying, you know, you get to a comfortability. She has been in the industry 20 years. She is in her mid 30s. She is getting married. It is more of an adult topic. It kind of extends what we saw when it came to dress and or to guilty as sin. But Taylor shouldn't be scoffed at or looked in a different light because she is willing to talk about this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you even see with other artists like Sabrina Carpenter and all the drama about her man's best friend cover. And it was like, well, men have done this so long in other facets. Why are we now not letting a woman talk about this? Why can't a woman talk about this experience that she also has, but it's okay for men to talk about this experience? And I think Taylor kind of is doing that in here. She kind of did it a little bit in Tortured Poets Department, but not to the extremity that she has done in the life of a showgirl, especially with Wood. And so I just think it's her being like, I'm engaged, I'm a mature and grown woman, and I'm going to write about what I'm feeling at this current point in my life. And that's a very valid thing that she is feeling.
One of the user comments was, did Taylor confirm that the song is about Charlie XCX? She did not. It is, we do know it's about a hater. A lot of the online chatter is just pointing in that direction. Another thing that was of note that I saw this morning was maybe there's something with her being married to the drummer from 1975. But again, nothing has been officially confirmed. Tyler, you've been watching, though, all the radio shows on things that have been confirmed. And there's a couple of details about the wedding that she talked about.
Yes, so on Graham Norton, she actually confirmed that she wants to have a really big wedding. She said having a small wedding would be super stressful. So she's like, I just want to have a big wedding, less stress, and invite everybody. And she even invited somebody on air during one of her interviews, I think at BBC Radio 1, literally invited him to the wedding on air. And he like was speechless and he was like, are you serious right now? She's like, yeah, you're friends. Like, you're coming to the wedding.
Yeah, they've been friends for a while. He's been there for a lot. And that's what I've seen with this media tour is almost people that she's comfortable with. She announced on Travis's podcast, it was a safe space. Graham Norton's couch, she's been there through multiple eras, multiple albums. BBC Radio 1, what you're referencing, she's been on that. And so it's more lighthearted fun. I know with Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers coming up. Tyler, I have to ask you, because I know a lot of people are thinking about it. What is on Saturday? Do we have any idea what standby could mean? And if you don't know, there was a time card that had her schedule tweeted out by Taylor Nation, and it said Saturday at 7 is a standby. What are we thinking? What are theories?
So I feel like it's two extremes. It's either merch or it's an appearance, and there's like no in between. We know that Taylor Nation loves to like hype up the merch. If you've been in the fandom TBT to like the 1989 summer collection with that countdown, like there's just been so many drastic things to like hype up. I mean, even in this era, like hype, like the countdowns for another variant, the countdowns for a 2-day countdown for a cardigan. You know, like, so it's either that or there is the potential that she could be appearing on SNL. Bad Bunny is hosting SNL this week. He cryptically posted a photo with Taylor last week that was so random and out of left field. Could have been something to do with the Super Bowl, maybe being like, thanks Taylor for saying no, because now I'm doing it. But she also would be comfortable in that building because she's in that building for Jimmy Fallon. She's in that building for Seth Meyers. So I'm sure security and everything would be set to have 30 Rock be like a secure space for Taylor to work in.
Oh, that's my hopes. I love that theory. Okay, before we go, can you give us, again, your iconic line that you contributed to the Eras Tour?
Oh, where are you going, Taylor?
I love that. Well, we are going to the movies. Thank you all for joining us on this USA Today Live, talking all things Life as a Showgirl. Again, my 4 panelists were Kayla Wong at Headfirst Fearless, Sarah Chappelle at Taylor Swift Styled, Alia Buttleman, who is the co-founder of at Phase It Beauty, and then Tyler Conroy, TyVid5, one of my favorites to follow. And then I'm Brian West TV. Thank you all for joining us. And baby, that's show business.